I want to do a quick recap on the strategies and mostly looking at the strategies from a competitive perspective. What's important is to understand that the strategy belongs to a bigger idea, which are the objectives. So the objectives are explained through the strategies, and the strategies are explained through the tactics, and the tactics are explained through the actions. So it goes from the bigger picture to the smaller picture. So the strategies are up in the big picture. The idea is that you need to think strategically, meaning you think at a higher level, which are the long-term broad perspective of thinking to satisfy your customers by creating something, by making a big change that needs to be implemented by smaller actions, and eventually to keep the customer coming back. The basic strategies are also called the hands-off strategies, and these are these four, looking at either going after the same markets or going after different markets, using the same product or creating a new product. So if you sell the same product to the same customers, that's called market penetration. So you don't change anything, you just try to sell more of something that you already sell to the same people. And usually that could be implemented by lowering the prices or changing the distribution, having maybe the product sold in more places. If you decide to sell to the same customers new edition of this product, this will be called product development. So it's much more involvement because you'll have to create a product. If the product is slightly changed, meaning that you have a yogurt and then you have a flavored yogurt and then you keep adding flavors, these might not be product development because it's not enough of a new product to be a product development. Or if you're changing the size of the packaging, that would also be market penetration because it's not enough. So product development requires a larger change than just a mere change of size. It needs to be significantly different. It needs to be a new version with a large number of changes in order to be a new product development. New product development is very involving, and new product development is very common in the industry, and it's required in order to keep being an innovative company. Market development is when you're trying to sell the product to a new target. So your product is really good, you're satisfied with it, but you're thinking that you could broaden the market by having additional type of customers that could be buying the product. So maybe you're selling the product to younger people and decide that you can sell it to older people, and that would be market development. Obviously, if you're selling it in one country and selling it in another country, that's the sort of the stereotype image that one can use in order to understand what's market development. But it doesn't have to be just changing total market. It can be just a different age group, or it can be a different income, or it can be a different gender. Diversification, even though it seems to be just a new product for just a new market, it has to be a significantly new market and a significantly new product in the sense that you're changing categories. So you were selling shampoo and now you're selling ice cream, and that's significantly different, and therefore that would be what's called diversification. Other strategies include the basic competitive strategies, such as trying to have the lowest price as possible. This is called overall cost leadership, trying to sell the product to a very specific group of customers, a narrow group of customers, that's called focus, trying to have a product that is very different than the competitors. So by this difference, eventually you will be going after a specific group of customers. That's called differentiation. And then the middle of the road strategy is when you're trying to be a product that is very acceptable, sort of universal for everyone to like, not focusing on a specific group, not trying to have a product that is very different, not trying to be the most expensive or the cheapest. Is you're just trying to be the product that fits for everyone. Other strategies, which you'll be trying to be competitive by trying to get an advantage, having a leadership position or offering more values, trying to satisfy the customers from specific actions, such as being the one that's the best operations in order to satisfy the customers, and this is called operational excellence, or having the best relationship, being the closest, almost being sort of a club member or members only, or having a large number of people that follow and that are very much caring for what you do. This is called customer intimacy. Or if you are trying to have the product that is the most innovative and constantly innovate in your product category and be perceived as the category disruptor and the one that brings the most innovations, that would be product leadership. Finally, the last strategies that one see oftentimes used are also the basic competitive marketing strategies, also known as the Porter strategies. In this situation, you would have market leadership, where you're trying to have the largest product being sold in your market, the market challenger, where you're trying to very much be the other choice beside the leader. So it would be sort of like Avis versus Hertz. And then you have the market follower, which is the company that will not have the resources in order to be a leader nor a challenger, and eventually will try to learn as much as possible from the leading companies. And then you have the market nicher, which is the company that's very much like the focus, the one that's really going after much smaller group of consumers and understanding who they are and offering the best product for them. So being competitive means that you have to study the strengths and weaknesses of your competitors, and that method is called benchmarking. There are many things that you can do in benchmarking, but the easiest thing to start with is looking at their strengths and weaknesses. Eventually trying to understand what are their objectives, what are their strategies, what are their tactics, what are their policies, what campaign they're going to launch, and all of this is seen by monitoring constantly what your competitors are doing, and this is called marketing intelligence. Trying to understand who are their targets and have the best definition of who their targets are in order to sort of compare with your targets, understanding their positioning. So usually that's how they frame their slogan, how they tell to their customers what their strengths are. Then looking at their prices, seeing if where they are higher, where they are lower, which product that they offer more discounts, looking at where do they sell, and if they use direct, indirect, how many intermediaries, what kind of intermediaries, looking at the R&D that they may be spending and the innovation and the frequency of the innovation, looking at the size of their product line, seeing if they have maybe a big width of products, but a minimal depth, or maybe they have the opposite, they have very narrow width, but a large depth. And so looking at how many new products, how many old products, looking at their market share and for the different products they may have. Then looking at how do they communicate, what are the methods and channels that they may be using, and seeing what kind of relationship they have with the trade, their suppliers, the distributors, the other organizations they may be working with in order to get advices, and if they own any of the distribution as well, any level of the distribution, maybe they own the retailing or the wholesaling or both. Benchmarking can be done in your industry and should be done in your industry, but then it's also very smart to look at other industries in order to learn some changes or some activities done in other industries in order to maybe borrow or get inspired to try to implement these in your industry. The same thing, looking at overseas and learning from what other companies do overseas, and they may not be your competitor, but they may be your competitor if you were to work in this market overseas. And so you could see by sort of anticipating maybe the future of your market, because there's different maturity of industries, and sometimes you find markets which have more maturity, and so that gives you a little bit of a future forward understanding of the market. So to recap, if you have the corporate strategies, the high level strategies, and here I'm only putting 4 of them, and eventually you have the sub strategies, so the strategies for each one of the P. So are the corporate level strategies and the sub strategies both strategies? They are, but it's just a level of coverage that they have. The corporate strategies are very much covering the entire strategies for the company, versus the sub-strategies are very much focused on strategies for each one of the Ps. Again, it's very important to see the difference between the broader perspective and the narrower perspective. And when you're thinking of broad, long-term, you're thinking in terms of strategies. Again, this is the same type of slide, but looking at it from a different angle, if you want, is you have the pyramid, and at the top of the pyramid, you have the strategies that will be covering the entire company. And then as you get lower, you have the strategies that cover each one of the P. To finish, I will talk about the Porter 5 forces. And the Porter 5 forces are not exactly the same as what you do when you're doing the SWOT. They are sort of like the Pesson, but it's more of a focused perspective, looking at the Pesson from the angle of looking at who would be your competitors and what would the competitors be able to do, and what are the leverage that you would have in going in the market. The Pesson is looking at all the different factors. The Porter 5 forces is looking at the interactions of the cost, your prices, your competitors, the direct and indirect competitors, and also the changes that may occur from the facility of anyone to come and compete in your market. So the Porter 5 forces sort of go along with the Pesson, and the Porter 5 forces offer some perspective that are also used in the SWOT analysis, because they sort of give you a flavor of how good are your opportunities and how fit you are in going after these opportunities and also addressing the issues related to threats. So the threats of new entrants, the degree of rivalry, the threat of substitute, this is very much talking about the fact that you may have strengths, but you may also have threats that are coming and they're going to generate some issues for your strengths. So threats of new entrants is how easy it is to join in this industry. Maybe there's not too many licenses, not too many patents, not too many regulations, and therefore there's not too many barriers of entry. And that can be a problem because then you could have suddenly many competitors. The threats of substitutes is it's possible that you're selling a product that right now could be substituted by something that becomes an innovation and people are going after the innovation. The bargaining power of the buyers is, are there many buyers? Are there many brands selling? So it's an issue of supply and demand. The bargaining power of the suppliers, here again, you may be dependent on your suppliers and you may have your competitors also dependent on these suppliers. So the suppliers may be the one that has more power over everyone making these products, and therefore how much do you own the suppliers, how much you buy from the suppliers makes you more dependent. And then the degree of rivalry is the number of competitors that you have in the market. And obviously, the more competitors you have, usually the more problems that you have in trying to get your own market share or large market share.